Hey everyone, Elio here, and welcome back to another video for the Alter trading card game. This time we're playing Arjun in the new expansion. We're forgoing all those Lyra festivals that everyone else is using as a crutch, and we're just playing mid-range, trying to get lots of value and beat down our opponents. The most important thing in Arjun is to have targets to anchor. Inari, Aloe Vera, and Dong are the best options here. Dong is a one-of that I really like. He's not always good, but when he is, he can totally force your opponent into awkward positions. When we look at the rest of the character suite, the focus is things that can also re-anchor our characters. If we want something anchored once with Arjun, we probably want it to be anchored even more. Finally, filling out the characters, we have Muna Merchant, whose 2-drop cost helps us fill out the curve and is really sweet for that spot, and it makes a lot of turns and plays cleaner. Its resupply effect also lets us put power on the board while giving fuel for Arjun. And Saskia is great. She's often equivalent to a rare Cernunos in terms of the power she puts on the board, but she can put it on a perpetually anchored unit, giving us staying power throughout the game. Once we leave the characters, our focus for spells is things that can keep our units around. Beauty Sleep doubles as an offensive threat and a stall mechanic. I'm really impressed with so far. It's really nice having a 1-mana thing to drop into the reserve for Arjun and immediately use as fuel, and it can also help anchor something with its supportability. Past that, we need plenty of Arjun fuel. Acapella Training is a great 1-cost spell that can prevent a threat from recurring and then immediately be used as Arjun fuel. Floral Tent also serves this purpose of immediate fuel, while serving as well as protective value. A lot of people think that this card is primarily protective value, but the real strength is its 1-mana resupply, and the removal protection is just gravy. Rare Harvest is pretty cool here, because it's basically infinite cards in your reserve that you can use as fuel. Near the end, we have 2 one-off landmarks. Spindle protects our anchored units and gives them boosts throughout the game, and the Frozen Reprocessor has felt great, giving us infinite fuel for Arjun. Our last common spell is 3 Lost in the Woods, which we primarily use for permanent removal. Having something that doesn't have a downside at common that can get rid of permanents feels great, and in a pinch we can get some characters to the reserve if the tumults align. Finally, we have our uniques. A Capella that from reserve can re-anchor something, which feels awesome. A Chiron that kind of acts as a Muna Merchant that can give resupply, and a Saskia that can give boost to something that's anchored. And one of our favorite uniques, this Lyra Cloth Dancer that can repeatedly give something fleeting. So this acts as a final potential anchor target for Arjun and other cards. That's the deck. If you like this video, please consider subscribing. It helps me out and helps me out in the algorithm. And let's jump into some games. Okay, game 1 against Lindiwe. So I do find that Lindiwe really likes permanents. Whether or not it's Baba's Isba, Ortis Carrier, or something else, I find that there's a lot of things that really make his engine go when he has permanents. So I don't want to get rid of 2 of these Lost in the Woods. So I think I'm going to keep one of these. I would like to keep at least one of these uniques. I don't really have anything right now to anchor. The Floral Tent is, somewhat appealing because it'll give me the opportunity next turn, for example, to do 1-drop Floral Tent, anchor a 3-drop that I draw. Definitely don't want to keep the Saskia, but I think ultimately, I'm drawing 2 cards next turn. I might not hit one of the 3-drops. I'm going to keep the 2 uniques. Both of these will allow me to potentially push on at least 1 lane this turn, maybe both. And the Lost in the Woods will let us answer any problematic permanents. Okay, he does open up with a Ortis Carrier. Rather than, just take 2 lanes, I'm just going to use this opportunity to immediately answer the Carrier, and we'll go to the next turn. Put back Meditation Training there. We got one of our 3-drops. Here, I'm going to open with one of the 1-drops. I'll do the one that resupplies, so next turn I can potentially Chiron, then Aloe Vera. And he drops a Jellyfish on the left. He still has 3 mana left. I can go ahead and challenge that with the Capella. There's a good chance he's going to try to sacrifice this and then build up on the right, so we'll trade left for right most likely. And indeed, that's what happens. He's drawing 3 cards with Gift of Self plus Jellyfish, which is infinite cards. Oh wait, sorry. He only draws the card when the Jellyfish is fleeting. That's good to remember. I really don't want to get sabotaged here. Between the Sow and the Spindle, I have, I'm going to be starting to resupply. Capella is going to give a re-anchor on this. I think I'm going to keep the Spindle. That will potentially protect us against some removal later on. And it is the one-off spindle, but there's a lot of potential removal out of Ysmir. We'll go right here with the Chiron and plan on stacking it with the aloe vera. We're not beating this Amarok, and he's going to be probably playing the jellyfish, drawing a card, making a 2/2. You always open on it with a resupply on this, and then with that we could use the harvest, but we won't do that. We'll just go ahead and plan on using this harvest with the Arjun to play an anchored aloe vera. And once again, we'll trade lanes. He's up on cards in hand. The game feels pretty even right now. And another jellyfish. But that won't be enough for him to take the lane. He's just starting to get towards we can draw the card and build resources here. I might want this frozen reprocessor. I'll put back the sow. Sometimes I'll keep the reprocessor, or I'll put back the reprocessor when I am already getting a lot of resources, or if I'm facing a tempo issue, but I'm not really facing a tempo issue. He's only gotten 2 advances so far. I'm not killing on resources so far. I've only got 1 aloe vera. So maybe next turn I can drop down this reprocessor. We'll go ahead and drop down the sow, and we'll open up with spindle to protect against any removal. And then we can follow up with, ideally, the Capellia, but worst case, we can follow up with a Saskia just to get some pressure. He drops an Ortis Carrier, but us playing the Capellia will let us re-anchor this aloe vera. And once again, we trade lanes. Both of us developing a permanent that turn. I'll put back the Moonadruid here. Specifically, if he plays this Amarok, Beauty Sleep is just lovely versus Amarok. They are forced to not have any power in that lane. Anything that they will continue to play there will get sacrificed, and we can kind of do that for 2 turns in a row with 1 Beauty Sleep. So this turn we can maybe Beauty Sleep, maybe Saskia our own aloe vera, but also maybe a reprocessor. We'll see what he does, what the opponent does. And we'll also see what we resupply. Hitting an Inari there is great. That 2 mana, 3 mana, 7 mana will let us really do kind of a perfect turn here. He plays Amarok. We open up with the sleep. We don't actually need to open with that sleep. It may have been better, just in case he has something in hand to open up with the anchored Inari. He plays an Isba. He did just draw a new card, so in case that's sabotage, I do want to go ahead and get the Inari out now. And then we want to keep this Beauty Sleep around. We can go ahead and develop this frozen reprocessor. And now with drawing a card next turn, our extra resupply here, next turn we can play aloe vera. We're going to have tons of resources now. And in here we block him on the lane, but we'll advance on left. And what's great is this 1 power will probably be enough to advance next turn on left as well, because we'll be putting this to sleep again. This turn, I plan on, immediately, you may think to put back the acapella training. We already have one there. Moon Merchant's going to develop the board, but this turn, we're going to be spending 6 mana on these things. And I actually kind of prefer just having the stall plays. So I'm going to put back the Moon Merchant. We can open up with a sleep to make sure that we get this out before any sabotage effects. They go ahead and stall. Here we can go and play one of our aloe veras. We can discard this acapella training. He may think that we have no more. But anything problematic that he puts out, we can get fleeting. He plays a Kraken, which is not going to work out how he wants. This makes anything that joins its expeditions get sacrificed, and this is in its expedition. So I think if you do this, you want to sacrifice the Amarok. They sacrifice the Maw, but the Kraken is immediately sacrificed due to Amarok's ability. And yeah, the sleep on the Auraq is just completely hamstringing our opponent, and in that turn, forcing a really awkward misplay. Yeah, that is brutal. So we'll continue from here. The Lindiwe is still very powerful. We did draw another sleep for the Auraq though, so we should be able to just go left here. We'll put back the acapella training this time. We want to put just power on the board and make sure that he can't remove all of our things. So as long as he doesn't sacrifice the Auraq and put a lot of power out there, we should be good this turn. Opening up with stall plays so that, you know, we get a good sense of, you know, we hide our hand for as long as we can. He does get rid of the Auraq. Now he has the first step that he needs, which is, you know, one of the reasons why we didn't play the beauty sleep immediately, because the only way he wins is by removing this Auraq, and so it's not worth doing immediately. We can go ahead and put this to put the right thing to sleep now since it's so huge, and now we're pressuring both lanes. And now we can do another stall play. Like we basically have room for one more 3-drop. Might as well just play the caregiver. We're trying to win this turn. No reason to try to just anchor. Let's force the win now. And then they finish with a unique Pamela. Can sack to gain 2 boosts. From reserve, can give boost. In general, this is going to be a potentially huge thing, but it's just not going to be enough. We can just play, I mean, any one of these cards win, we'll play Dong out for the victory. And yeah, that is Arjun versus Lindiwe. Okay, game 2 up against Auraq. A lot of Auraq, you know, is trying to get counters on it, which, you know, anything that can whittle away at their resources, not let them play like their 0 power things multiple times feels pretty decent. So I want to keep this acapella training for that reason. Outside of that, keeping unique seems great. And as the third thing, I'd like to keep something that would give me anchoring. So I'll drop the beauty sleep. I'm playing at least one 1-drop turn 1, so I can afford to do Mowgli, which I'll do that. So I'll do Mowgli, Akka, Capella, and we'll go from here. Now, I do have the option of doing Capella first and then maybe acapella training 2 things, but that exposes Capella to Tanuki, and I like the Capella more than the Mowgli. Also, like, it's a better use of mana this turn, you know, if he only plays one thing. So I'll go and open up with the Mowgli. He plays a Martingale. We will acapella training it. He plays the better unit second, Haven Sarengar, which is one of my favorite cards in this set. Wish that I could have acapella trained that, but we do not. That's fine. I'm curious, you know, if I had done Capella, if he would even just hold on to this, because keeping that around feels pretty good for him. Interestingly, this also ties the Mowgli. I think it's the only thing in the game that's going to give that a flat-out tie. Here, again, I don't like the sleeps here. We don't have a thing to anchor yet. And so I'll put back the sleep, and I'm probably just going to plan on playing the landmark this turn. I don't want to like overflow my reserve just to get a lane, and so this feels better. Cloth Dancer is not a bad one to get, you know, given our previous thoughts on giving him fleeting and stuff, but he is already up to 4 counters. And he gets the double advance here. We are down 3-0. Okay, we are now mini cards in. We haven't seen like our best anchorable targets, but we do have LCD, which we can at least anchor that. Here we can put back the harvest. We have plenty of resources right now, so we don't need rare harvest here. So I'm not hitting a big thing, but you know, this is an exhausted resupply, so we don't necessarily have a big thing there. I am just gonna open up with the Cloth Dancer so I don't get Tanuki'd. It's an important play for us, so I'll do it with the caregiver, but I think the acapella training is also a pretty good option to do it with. And in fact, doing it with the acapella training is probably better. But in hindsight, you 2020. But that would have allowed us to do like a Muna Druid follow up, and still not overflowed because the exhausted card is allowed with the frozen reprocessor. But instead, we can just play out this Capella. We are going to be discarding to reserve this turn. Actually, sorry, we don't. His LCD is going to hit our own thing, so it is what it is. No discarding to reserve, but the resource trade isn't feeling great. We're trading 1 for 1 here, but he's going to start going off with Auraq. We have 2 Muna Druids. We don't need both of those. I'd rather have the Muna Merchant, so I'll put back the Druid. Still not seeming like a great anchor target. He hits Tanuki. I'm kind of happy he just plays it rather than keeps it in hand so that he's not removing one of our reserve cards. He does open with Snowball Commando, hitting Mowgli, which we're kind of okay with. We don't have anything to anchor right now anyway, and this will let us hit fleeting on 2 things, so we can get both the Tanuki and the Snowball Commando. Let the Tanuki first, since that's more important, so if he like Cloth Cocoons this, we're still hitting it. He plays Will-o'-the-Wisp, and we can at least block him in the Tanuki lane with Muna Merchant, and even advance, sorry, with the Muna Druid follow-up. Now, the Will-o'-the-Wisp is going to be probably scarier here, so we'll give that a fleeting rather than the Snowball Commando. But it is worth noting that the Commando is actually 3 power here where he is now, so maybe that was the wrong thing to hit. It depends if he's running winter outfits, but that Will-o'-the-Wisp is going to be blocking us on lanes, which was a little scary to us, but again, in hindsight, maybe the Commando is the better thing to hit here. From our own side, we'll get rid of the Muna Druid. We may want this Lost in the Woods for like Hydrocanas out of Auraq. We don't know if he has any big hits yet and what those are. Now we're finally seeing some things to hit in the reserve. We have lots of resources, so I think I'm actually going to go with the keep the Dong, which will, maybe we can slow him down a little bit, and this also has more power, and we need to compete over lanes. The 3 mountain is important, but yeah, I don't know quite what I want to do here yet. We'll open up with the Muna Merchant to see more options. We hit a Floral Tent, which we can play on the right. Again, resupplying to see more options. It's another Lost in the Woods. And they did have the winter outfit, so we were right about hitting that Will-o'-the-Wisp. But I think that's an accidental correct move, maybe. Now, here, I'm not going to be able to fully block him, but I can at least force him to play out like the Esmeralda, and then we can maybe dong the winter outfits. And he'll go up 1 advance, and we just need to hope for no small step, giant leap. We can get rid of one of these Lost in the Woods to anchor the dong and keep the Mowgli around for future anchoring. And he actually plays card from hand, which we're fine with. That'll let us, he's actually going to be discarding to reserve here, and we can actually be donging the Hatter. So we're way far behind here, but now we have all of our resources going. We have lots of mana. We've started anchoring something that's going to be putting pressure on his reserve so that he's going to have less things available to him. He's drawing 2 cards this turn, but his reserve is basically useless in terms of putting power on the board, but he does also hit the Auraq this turn. So puts 1 card back, so it makes me think, he has expensive things in hand. We can't afford to be spending right now. We need to be playing extremely defensively, and so we need things power on board or things that are moving. Luckily, he only has Paper Herald with this, and we can go ahead and dong his Hatter. And he basically gets 2 plays this turn. He gets a winter outfits and a follow-up. He did discard something to mana, which makes me think that this is Hydrocana. That's the only thing that you really need a 1-drop follow-up play with. So we want to keep our Lost in the Woods available to us. We can go ahead and Muna Merchant to resupply, see what we get. Hit a Saskia, which we may actually end up hitting on the Dong, but he does play Hydrocana, and we'll go ahead and send it to reserve, but that'll be back next turn potentially. But this puts us now with, let's anchor the Dong to Shen, and we can, yeah, we'll anchor the Dong to Shen, and we don't need to Saskia now because both of these lanes are going to be grass, and I don't know where he's going to be putting his pressure on. I'd rather have this, we're going to have mana for three mana plays, and I'd rather than just make this big now, be able to put our counter into the lanes that we need to compete over. So we put back a Mowgli. We're going first. We'll Dong the Hatter here so that, basically if he wants to play Hydra, he can do it, but it's going to be almost all of his mana. Open up with the Aloe on left. And right now we're, he doesn't have a lot of plays available to him. In fact, he's forced to play the Hydra. Presumably this is just a smaller thing, that maybe it's a 3-drop. It's not going to be as big as the Hydra. We can Lost in the Woods from our hand. And no matter what he has here, this, unless it's some crazy unique, this should be enough to finish off the game. Okay, up against Teija. I do like this LCD. I don't think I need both LCD and Dong, especially with anchored units. I don't know when I'm going to have something to actually hit with the Dong. And so with that, I think that we can do like a Floral Tent turn 1, and then depending on what they do, we can follow up with either LCD or Muna Merchant. And that makes an easy putback of Saskia and Beauty Sleep and Dong. I do like Beauty Sleep against Teija, as it's like a convenient counter for anchored things, but the sequencing that is provided by my other plays feels just better. So yeah, as said, we open up with the tent. They don't play a character, so we don't need to play the LCD now. We can just play the Muna Merchant. We do want to play it in the lane that is not protected by Floral Tent, so that the Floral Tent sticks around. We don't overflow our reserve. And it's worth noting that this Spindle is going to protect against LCD. Even knowing that, like, I'm not looking to... I'd rather just not be LCDing him for now than spending 3 mana getting rid of this. So I'll get rid of the Lost in the Woods because this is one of our best anchor units, and this is just a decently powered thing. He plays Persephone. That'll pretty much block off this lane here. We can actually play LCD on left, and then if he doesn't play anything else, we can use the mana to get rid of the Persephone through the Spindle. And if he does play something else, we'll let them have it, and well, we'll see. Maybe we compete against it, maybe we don't. But we're taking this lane, we can't block this, so we'll go ahead and pause here, pass here, and give this fleeting, so once this anchored is eventually removed, it's gone. And we'll anchor the Lyra Cloth Dancer to stick around, since this Floral Tent is going to go back to the reserve. And yeah, it's important to remember that this tax even applies during this phase, so if you're planning on using that you have the mana available. And we go on to another round, and maybe we even drain them of some resources through the Spindle. Here, I either want to get rid of the Muna Druid or the Meditation Training. I think my plan here, though, is going to be to Muna Merchant into an Aloe. So we'll put back the Muna Druid. We can go right with the Muna Merchant, potentially threatening to compete against this. They play Parvati. Now, that is interesting. We could Aloe, and we would compete over the right or the left. Really, it would probably make sense to do the left. But as we have more turns on this LCD, the Spindle sticks around. We can also effectively Lost in the Woods the Spindle, get rid of that permanently, and have the LCD for free on the Parvati, making sure that this doesn't come back the next turn. And he's only got 1 card in hand. Yeah, I like running him out of the resources here. So we Lost in the Woods the Spindle. And then we'll pass the turn. He does double advance here, but we're giving exhaust to the Parvati, and he's running out of characters. I may want this spindle against his own sleeps and stuff, and we don't have a ton of resources now, so this is a place that the harvest actually feels good. So we'll put back the meditation training for now. They play Yangsu. Our plan will be to LCD aloe and floral tent, not necessarily in that order. In fact, we want a tent before we aloe vera. But depending on what they do, which a Parvati is going to definitely be something we want to hit with the Lyra Cloth Dancer. And it's also not enough water to block us from advancing with aloe vera. So we'll play the floral tent on the right because we're not trying to get rid of it. We can leave it there and we can use the reserve card to play the aloe vera on the left. We will anchor the aloe vera here, as keeping this Yangsu around for another time doesn't bother us too much with them having no other characters to support it. It's much harder for this Yangsu to trigger. And we get rid of another one of their key cards from coming back while starting our own little engine here. Drawing into Reprocessor, Saskia. I do think I'm going to want to keep the Saskia around. It's either Harvest or Spindle, as I want to play Reprocessor this turn. We'll get rid of the Spindle just in case we need more resources of our own. Right now we don't really have a lot of plays, though truth be told, once this Reprocessor is in play, we're going to start getting a lot of options available to us, and it's probably the case that we don't need this Harvest long term. But we open with the Reprocessor, they anchor the Yangsu, and we can just follow up with a Saskia on the right, boosting the aloe vera, and anchor the aloe vera once it comes back to us. They do play Beauty Sleep on our Saskia, so we're not advancing on the right, and they're threatening a sleep on the aloe vera. We still want to force that sleep by playing the anchor effect, but and it's also worth noting this is a rare sleep. So we won't advance this turn. In fact, they will. But we still have all this power available to us, and we're now at the point where we're going to be getting tons of resources in our reserve with the Reprocessor and aloe vera. As said before, we have so many resupply effects here now, and now another aloe vera. We can just drop the harvest. We hit an Inari and a floral tent here. We'll open up with one of these Inaris on the right, which will start blocking this Persephone. We could have saved the anchoring effect for aloe vera, but I don't know if I'm going left or right here, and I don't know. I'm going to have so much reserve stuff with the frozen reprocessor and stuff. I'd rather get cards in hand at this point. They do play physical training on the Persephone. Now, we have 6 mana, which is enough to do everything in our hand. And with 2, 5, 6 plus 5, if they physical training on right, we could block that. And if they physical training on left, we can also block that by doing a Inari on right, aloe vera on left to tie. But we'll open up with So as the stall play to see where they do this physical training, putting it on our anchored unit. And they do go left, so we'll plan on going aloe vera left to block and tie, and Inari to win on the right. Get rid of one of the aloe veras here. Having the extra power from Saskia seems nice, and we have so much power available to us. I really like both of these. Well, the Mowgli I'm not super thrilled about, but it's a great Persephone blocker, and if we're discarding something from reserve to anchor with the Arjun, like we may have all these plays available to us, so I'm not going to put anything into mana. We open up, and I'm actually going to use the Muna Druid to anchor the aloe vera on the left side. doing the left because we're likely going to be anchoring the Inari on the right, and that'll give us, going into the next round, power on both sides. Them opening up with Yangsu, though, is a good sign that they don't have 2 plants in hand. We can do our slower stall play with Chiron on right, which is good stats for this side. But the Persephone is here now, potentially threatening to start fighting over grass here. But they're not quite there yet. We can play another Saskia right, which would block like a Persephone, while also boosting our left side to advance there. But we actually, we put the Saskia on the left side since we're already advancing on the right. And the advantage of this is actually that they're not actually blocking us in mountain or water here. So unless they have like Mowgli plus winter outfits, which they do have a rare Mowgli, this one lets both sides resupply. But they spend the last mana on the resupply, so they're not going to have the winter outfit. So they advance, and because we forced left, we're also advancing on right. And we'll go into this final round with both of us one lane away, but us starting with a ton of things on board with both the Inari and the Aloe Vera anchored, plus a Beauty Sleep available to us if we need that in a pinch. Here, we'll put back Aloe Vera. The Lost in the Woods can hit things from both their sides. We have plenty of characters, and we're probably gonna be sleeping them if it comes down to it. But we'll mostly open up with stall plays. So like Muna Caregiver on the right, they play the Mowgli. We can play our own Mowgli to actually just block them on the grass here, since what we're fighting over is mountain, and that's where this is going to be most effective. And a Nurture comes out, which puts them down to 1 mana and just isn't going to be enough for them to follow up here. We just fill up the board with more power, and we can get rid of something with Lost in the Woods, and we take down Teija for the win. Thanks for watching, everybody. I took this deck to Elite, and I've been enjoying playing it. Looking forward with this deck, I don't think that 2 rare harvest feels right. I definitely like to cut down one of those to, maybe a common harvest and upgrade something else. And So has felt great, so trying to get that up to 3 copies also feels like a nice opportunity. Looking forward to playing more games on the channel, and thanks for watching.